Copyright, PROs, what they are and why you need to handle your business. Up next on SEVACAST. Tonight, live from Virginia Beach, Virginia, podcasting all things musical from Southeast Virginia. Our sound, our songs, our artists, and our business. Welcome to SEVACAST with host Tom Farley and Alton Riddick. Let's get talking. Hello, folks. How you doing? This is Alton Riddick with...
This is Tom Farley.
Tom Farley, and we are going to talk about the business of music on this second episode of SEVACAST. And the portion of the business of music we're going to talk about in particular are copyrights and PROs. Tom has been doing this for 40 years. I have been doing this for none. That's not true. But the business part of it, none. I know nothing about this, so this is going to play well. I'm the layperson. He is the sage. He's going to sprinkle his magic. He's going to let us know what's going on, how to do it, why you should be doing it. So, what do you have to say before we actually start?
I think the best way to start would probably be just with a basic textbook definition. Textbook says the copyright is an exclusive legal right given to an originator or an assignee, okay, which the originator would be the person who's actually doing the writing, to print, to publish, to perform, to film, or to record literary, artistic, or musical material, and to authorize others to do the same. It is your first line of legal protection. It's a defense against people stealing your created work.
Okay, that's a good place to start. Because we all know that if you put something out there and you don't protect yourself, people will steal. It's not if, so you have to protect yourself.
I mean, some people don't realize how good their songs might be. Say they're performing them without having a copyright. Somebody hears it. You never can tell. But if you wrote it, you deserve to have the credit and also to reap the benefits from it.
Absolutely. And that's exactly why we need to talk about what we need to talk about. Because when I was playing, you write a song, good or bad, you write a song. I don't think that this was the first thing that was on our minds. In fact, I know it probably wasn't. But if you put it out there, people will take it. And then once, you try to defend yourself, you find out fast that you can't. So this person didn't write a song at all, didn't write that song, but they thought it was really good. And they found out that it wasn't protected. So as far as the world is concerned, and that's what really matters, they own the song now. And what are you going to do about it? Nothing. Well,
as a matter of fact, they could even take the song that you have and copyright it on their own, and you wouldn't have anything to say about it.
Exactly. So now that we have our definition of it, where are we going from here? What are you going to teach me as a novice musician?
Well, there's two basic kinds of copyrights. The first one is called a performing arts copyright. The copyright form is Form PA.
Okay.
For songwriters, it copyrights your music and your lyrics. Okay, now that could be for songs, but you could also do it with dramatic or presentations or motion pictures or any kind of audio visual stuff. But at the end of the day, you want to copyright your music and your lyrics. So it's essential for songwriters.
Okay.
Basically, if you wrote it on your own, it's very simple. You fill out the music and lyrics part and send it in, or you could do it online, which we'll get into in a little bit. What you have to do is make sure that anybody who's associated with the music, anybody who's associated with the lyrics that's on the sheet, make sure that you fill out the rest of the information and send it in. Or you could do it online through what is called Electronic Copyright Office, which is ECO. So the performing arts thing, actually, that particular copyright allows you to copyright the music and the lyrics, which is, of course, the front line. It is the song itself. And when I did my first copyrights, it was, and even to this day, it's mostly a guitar and a vocal, and I sing the melody. And
right.
So what you're doing is that you don't have to have a full-blown production. What you are copywriting is the music and the melody and the lyrics and so forth, which go all combined together.
Well, that brings up a good point. Before you even go on, what can you copyright? Can you copyright a progression, which I don't think you can, or is it just the melody and the lyrics? What can you copyright? What is copyrightable, if that's a word?
Well, if you wrote it, in other words, you didn't write GCD, okay? You didn't write, CFG, okay? You can't. That's just a simple progression that people use a gazillion times. But what you actually put to that, the music you put to that, the melody you put to that, and the lyrics that you put to that, those are yours, and that's what you can copyright.
Okay.
That becomes, that's something that you created in that particular medium.
Okay, that is helpful. I know it seems elementary, but I don't want to take anything to chance. It's like any little thing.
The bottom line is that you really have to remember that if you created this, the only way anybody is ever going to legally know that you created it is to have it on file with basically your name, your sign on the dotted line that this is something that I wrote or that me and my best friend or whatever wrote together. And this is our version of this song, the only version, actually the original version of this song, a legal reality.
Okay.
Now there's a second type of copyright, which basically is called a Form SR.
Okay.
For a sound recording. And basically what this does, usually when people, if they're going to go in and they're going to do a full-blown studio version of the song, they're going to have, beginning, middle, and end, and the whole 9 yards, music, vocals, everything. What you are copywriting with a Form SR is the actual sound recording.
Okay.
Not the song itself, okay? That's already been copyrighted with Form PA. You are actually copywriting the sound recording. If you take a look at it, it's like when you buy the mineral rights to your property.
Right.
If you own a farm, like a 500-acre farm out in the middle of nowhere,
right.
If you own a farm, well, that's fine. But if you don't buy the mineral rights, which is everything underneath the surface of those 500 acres, then anybody and their brother can have access to it.
Right.
So if you had some kind of rare minerals or something under there, someone could steal it right out from underneath your feet.
Okay.
And so basically you're copywriting what is actually played, what is actually performed on the recording. Now you say, well, why in the world would you want to do that? Well, when you think about back in the late 80s and 90s when people were sampling other people's music in a big way, they still do it. But that's when it really got started. People would take like a vocal lick or a musical lick or a passage, and they would actually chop it out and make songs out of these different parts. It's like using a loop, but they're actually taking something that's already been recorded and already copyrighted, and they're actually taking that and making their own songs.
Right.
The litigation from this, can be long and drawn out. As a matter of fact, there was at one time, according to one music executive, more music in litigation that was actually being released on a regular basis. So if if you have the sound recording copyrighted, then you have your defense against those kinds of things.
Right.
But it also, it sets in stone, this is the version. And these are the things these are the instruments we played and the vocals that we put in. And that's important. You can do it as a collection. You don't have to do an individual copyright on everything. If you put out an album, put every single song that you have on there and put an SR as a collection, and you're good to go. So
in your case, like my introduction to you was junior high, and I saw your poster from Songsmith on the wall in the office. So You're telling me that when you wrote those songs, that's one copyright, but then as a collection in Songsmith, that's another copyright.
Well, that's a good point. You can copyright things as a collection or as an individual song.
Okay.
Now, for me, when I first got started, I had a boatload of material. So what I did was I copyrighted different collections and had everything copyrighted. Everything I ever wrote. But as time went on, I started doing the albums and CDs. Basically, I started copyrighting the individual songs as they came up. And I like that better. It's more expensive, but you're not putting out albums every day or every week. So, it's worth it. It's worth the time and the money to actually have those individual copyrights there. When I finished the album, however, I would do a Form SR on that, the sound recording copyright, and I would make sure that all the songs were included.
Would you do that as a collection?
Yes, I would do that as a collection. No doubt
Okay.
about it. To do it individually, it doesn't, didn't make a whole lot of sense, but especially since I already had the regular copyright already done on in the Form PA. I'm copywriting my CD. Every single bit of music and vocals that's on there is now copyrighted as a sound recording.
Okay, because that distinction I think is really important, as even from a cost standpoint. You know, if you're just doing songs, your one-off songs, which nowadays is the thing, copywriting each one. But if you're doing albums, even though they don't come out that often, you still have the option to do them as a collection. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And, and once you get a copyright, whether it's a PA or an SR, you own that copyright as long as you live. And then your copyright stays in your name for 70 more years, 7 decades longer. And until it actually, is that 70 years plus 1 day, it's no longer under copyright. It becomes like a classical work. Anybody and their brother can use it.
Right. So that's almost like public domain after that.
Exactly. It's exactly what it is. And the thing is, you can take your copyrights if you want to, and you can bequeath them to somebody or an organization or another person or something like that. There are ways of doing that if you want to go that route. But basically, it's life plus 70.
Okay. Now, when you say bequeath it to somebody, if you're leaving it to somebody, does that continue the copyright, or is it still 70 years plus after you're dead?
Now that's a good question. That's one thing I don't know. But I would think that if you bequeath it to somebody, that as long as that organization or person is alive, that the copyright would be in force.
So now we've covered the general definition. We've covered what a PA is, and we've covered what an SR is, and kind of bled into the period of ownership of copyright. So now the question is, why do you want a copyright?
Just a couple of things. First of all, it is your legal declaration of your created work. It protects the fact that you your creative genius took the time and actually created the music, the melody, and the lyrics for this particular song. So it's a legal declaration. That's your first step in protecting yourself. And then, when you get into the second half, which is performing rights organizations, having your copyright is part of registering your published works with the performing rights organization. When you actually go and join a PRO, one of the things that they're going to have you put into your every time you register a work with them is a copyright. And it helps them to make sure that the validity of what you're submitting is, of course, yours, but also as they're trying to get royalties for your works later on.
Okay. So you're covered, and there's somebody that is supporting you so you can get paid for your work.
Absolutely. Your copyrighted work. Absolutely. And, you can copyright your stuff. You can use the paper forms. As a matter of fact, we have the Form SR and the Form PA. You can download them right off the Radio Seva and Seva Sound website. In the footer has the thing that has business documents, and you just click on there and those documents are available to you. Or you could do Electronic Copyright Office, which is the ECO, and we have the link for that. Basically, you go in there, the first time you register, you put in a unique name and a password, and once you actually do your first copyright, all your information is in there, and it makes it easier to do other copyrights. You can do an individual one, or you can do a collection. It's totally up to you. And they ask you these questions as you're going along. And if you don't know what they're going to ask you, all you have to do is take a look at Form PA or Form SR. They are very, very clear in the different things that they're going to cover. And once you've done one, it's really quite simple to do the others because they're all the same. It's just different names and different people, possibly. And the cost is $55 for a basic claim. But if you are the person that's claiming it and you did the music and lyrics, there's nobody but you, and you didn't hire anybody to do anything to make the song happen, then basically it's only $35 a pop. When you're doing a collection, you only have to pay that one fee. So it's up to you how you want to do it.
Okay. So really depending on, like I said, if you're an artist and you're just putting out one shots all the time, then $35 per. If you have a collection of songs, then the same $35, but for all 10 or how many ever songs are in that collection.
Yeah, it covers. Yeah, that it can cover an individual or it can cover a collection of songs. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we have covered copyrights. You should definitely know enough to be dangerous. So now we're going to move on to. Well, I'm telling you, this is why we're here.
I know, man.
Because I want to be dangerous, and everybody else wants to be dangerous. So now we're going to move on we alluded to it in the copyright portion of the podcast. Now we're going to go and really talk about it, and that's the performing rights organization portion of it. So performing rights organizations defined. So define that for us, Tom.
Okay, textbook definition. It says a performing rights organization, also called PROs, helps songwriters and publishers get paid for the usage of their music by collecting one of the most important forms of publishing revenue, performance royalties. And the accent there is on performance. There are also mechanical royalties. Mechanical royalties are songs that you put on CDs or streaming or film soundtracks and so forth. Like, if you sell your CDs, you own all the songs, then you get all the mechanical royalties from that. If you have one of your songs on somebody else's CD, you get a portion of what the sale of that particular CD or whatever, or that particular stream, simply because you own the rights to it. You're going to get a piece of that as a mechanical royalty. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about performing. Basically, as a songwriter or composer or lyricist, you're owed what is called a performance royalty. Anytime your music is played on a radio station, whether it's a terrestrial one or a satellite or an internet radio station, doesn't matter. When it's used on TV, when it shows up in a commercial, when it's used in a TV show, or when it's performed in a live venue. If your song, your recorded song, your published song is basically, on some jukebox somewhere, or possibly is being streamed in through Muzak, or someone is actually playing that song live at a club, then you're supposed to get a chunk of that, and your performing rights organization is supposed to be sure to make that happen.
Okay. So now, like, for me, I've always been curious about this, and you're kind of taking me down a path where I can really ask and feel I can get an answer. So we've all heard, for the most part, Hendrix's version of All Along the Watchtower. Yep. We've all heard that more than we've heard the Dylan version, which Dylan wrote it.
Probably, yeah, absolutely. It's Dylan's song.
Right. So in that case, even though Jimi Hendrix is the one that's known for the tune, we hear it more often. Dylan is getting paid every time it's being played through Hendrix, right?
That's right. I mean, basically, the mechanical rights apply in terms of his, he put it on actually put it on an album. Now it's on CD. Now it's being streamed. Every single time that's played, if you're playing the Dylan version, he gets all of it. If you're playing the Hendrix version, he's going to get mechanical royalties every single time that song is played. Simple as that. Simply because he owns the song. Hendrix did a heck of a job on the song. Love that particular version, but he owes it, part of the money that he makes from selling that album or CD or for that song being played. Some of that is going to go to Bob Dylan, simply because he was the guy who wrote it. He owns the copyright. He owns the publishing rights. He's going to get his money, his royalty for that.
Okay. So as a writer and performer, or no, I shouldn't say writer and performer, but as a writer, you can really get paid 2 and 3 times based on the situation because of everything we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, mechanical and performing are 2 completely different streams of royalty, funding, so to speak. At the end of the day, when somebody performs your stuff, that's one thing. When somebody uses your song and puts it on a CD or puts it in a film soundtrack or something like that, every time that movie shows on HBO or Netflix, or every time it's shown in a theater, every single time someone's going to get paid. It's as simple as that. And that's the deal.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, like I said, I would just really want to lay this out for the layperson, which I am, in certain situations where, like, a little bit about it and you always wonder who gets the big check. Now people kind of understand exactly how the flow of money is.
Well, just as an example, because of Radio Siva, we have a little bit more of an insight. Every single time an artist on Radio Siva is played, Live 365, who is the people who stream our music, Live 365 is legally required to place on a spreadsheet the artist and all the metadata that the artist had put into the song. Every single time it's played, it goes on a log. That log is sent into ASCAP and BMI and CSAC and SOCAN and whoever they got in Great Britain every single week. So at the end of the day, every single time you're played on Radio SEVA or any other radio station, you are logged in, and that is sent to your performing rights organization. And that gives them the ability to do whatever they do. I don't know how they figure all this stuff. It's some weird formula, but how they actually get you your royalties on a regular basis. If you're not getting royalties yet, then certainly you're going to be on their radar, because your name's going to start popping up on that log sheet every single week. Now, they pay out their royalties quarterly. But, the thing is that every radio station, especially internet radio stations, are required to turn in those sheets every single week. So it's not a matter of just doing it blindly. There are legal requirements of the people who broadcast, and those are the ways that ASCAP and everybody else can get a hold of your stuff. Now, if you happen to be some big organization like HBO or Sony Pictures or something like that, they already have these huge, massive, agreements with the performing rights organizations. So basically, everything that they do, it's all, they're already a part of a system as far as getting all the information to them and so forth. But for the smaller, for a small station like ours, or for other stations, that is what they have to do.
So we're on to the ASCAP BMI. I mean, we mentioned it a little bit, but let's talk about the companies that actually make this machine run. So you have ASCAP, you have BMI, CSAC, and SOCAN, which is Canadian. Just tell us about those.
Well, basically, those are the organizations whose business is to actually making sure that the legal, I guess you could say, owner of the music gets the royalties that they deserve. Now, there's two ways that you can join these organizations. You can be a writer, or you can be a publisher.
Okay.
Now, if you're a songwriter, basically you would at least have your song and the copyright number for that song in their records, because you could register your songs as a writer to ASCAP or any of the others. So that way, if it happens to pop up on the radar, they all also say, someone's doing this song, but it was actually written by Tom Farley or whoever. Then at least you're going to they'll have a basis for actually going after the royalty for you as a writer. Now, as a publisher, a music publisher or publishing company, my publishing company is Farley Music Services. We're responsible for ensuring the songwriters and the composers receive the payment when their compositions are used commercially. In other words, when the royalties come in, we are supposed to make sure that those royalties get to the people who have published with us. Now, I don't have anybody but myself published as far as on my publishing company. But that doesn't mean that I can't publish another person and actually go out there and make and work with ASCAP, who I'm with, to make sure that they get royalties if their music happens to, start garnering some airplay or whatever. Also, if you happen to license your music, and when you talk about licensing your music for synchronization and stuff like that, there's some serious money in that. If you happen to sell your song to a film or a documentary or whatever, the licensing agreement. Actually, the people who actually license your music are paying to be able to use it. That's what a licensing agreement is. But that is not the royalties. They pay to use it. But when it's played, when it's on that film, and every single time that film is actually broadcast somewhere, then it is being played and you get a royalty for that. That is, the music is being performed or out there. So the bottom line is that when you license something, you're giving somebody the right to use it. But once they use it, you also get the royalties from every single time that it's used. And the publisher is the person that helps you make sure that you get that. Now, you could also be a writer and a publisher. Doesn't mean that you have to be, they're not mutually exclusive, which is what I am. I like to have works in a drawer, because basically as a writer, I own the copyrights. As a publisher, I'm publishing my music. When the royalties come in, I want every single bit of it for myself. All you have to do is to join one of the PROs, and when you join, then you could actually you pay a one-time fee of $50 for a writer, one-time fee of $50 for a publisher, and that's it. And then you can start registering your works, one after the other.
Now, why join a PRO, which we've kind of gone into a little bit, but really explain like the collection of royalties, collection of synchronization, licensing industry, and service and community.
Well, when you go back to the copyright definition, it says basically that your copyright allows you to authorize others to do the same as far as giving you the legal right to assign things. Well, when you go into the synchronization, if you publish your own stuff, you can sell the license for somebody to use it. Now, that person that you sell the license to use it is responsible, legally responsible, to actually setting up what is called a cue sheet and sending it in to your performing rights organization. Basically, it's the name of the project, who's doing it, all the things that are associated with a movie or documentary or whatever they're using your stuff for. That cue sheet is what the PRO will use in order to be able to collect your royalties whenever that is aired or used, whether it's in a theater or whether they see it on, NPR. I mean, the bottom line is that if your stuff is used, that they are responsible for putting that cue sheet and giving it to the PRO. They can track that and get you the royalties that you deserve. However, there are some people that will use your stuff without being licensed. It's your responsibility to make sure that the music has been licensed correctly. If it's not been licensed correctly, then you have to go and bang on the door saying, why are you using my song? PROs can't track every single song on the planet. But the cue sheets are the legal document that the people who have licensed your music are supposed to send in that allows you to get the fair share of royalties that you deserve.
Okay. So now we're back to the whole protection thing like we started with.
That's right. Once you've got your copywriting done, your PAs and your SRs done, and once you've hooked up with the PRO, then basically you're in line for whenever things start happening in your music. If you happen to sell a song to a particular movie, or if one of your CDs just happens to take off, then all of a sudden, you're going to be seeing money coming from places you never believed it would ever come from. Even clubs today, your favorite club or restaurant that you go to that has live music, they have to pay a fee to ASCAP and BMI and so forth to allow your song would be a cover tune that they would be covering as far as royalties, to allow that music to be played. So, like I said, HBO and all the major networks already have these deals with the PROs. But that's what they do. In other words, that's the reason why ASCAP and BMI and the other PROs are so, prolific throughout the entire musical world, because that's their job. And once they have actually secured all the times that are played, they'll use their formulas and be able to give the royalties to the individual artists as the way it's set up through their publishing and writing.
Okay. Well, how do you join?
All you have to do is go online. As soon as you go online to ASCAP, in the right-hand column, it says join. Just follow the bouncing ball and go through all the steps, put in all the information. I would highly recommend you do a writer and publisher, pay your $100, and that's it. Once you've done all that, you can start registering all of your songs with the names and the titles and the people involved and the copyright number, all those things for every single song. And once you've done that, you're all set up for any kind of good things that might be happening your way as far as your music being used or played.
Okay. Well, we have got it covered. I am much smarter than I was when we started this, because I promise you I knew nothing. So you have any parting shots before we go?
It's not that difficult to do. If you want to, just go onto the site. You can go to the copyright office if you want to, or just go to, the Radio Seva site or the Seva Sound website. Go down the bottom, it says business agreements, and you click on that link, and it has a whole bunch of stuff in there. And some of the things that it has in there would be the actual paper form, SR paper form for PA, and the link to go to the electronic copyright office, where you can actually, copyright your stuff online. Print it out and take a look at it and see what it is asking you to do. And it's really quite simple. It's just a matter of doing it. Once you've done it once, then doing it again is going to be simple. My only suggestion is make sure you're on a good computer with a really good line as far as access line, and also you got a credit card with you. And before you know it, your stuff's going to be copyrighted. And then once you actually hook up with the PRO, you can actually start putting in and registering your published works, the stuff that you have actually put out there to sell. And that's a great thing, because then somebody is going to have a vested interest in making money for themselves, of course, but also getting your royalties for you.
Okay. And the only parting shot I have is, if you're in your bedroom or you're outside or you're humming into your phone, that melody that's so strong that kept you up all night, if it kept you up all night or if you bothered to write it, then I think you should try to bother to protect it and yourself from future grief.
Amen to that, man. Really.
Well, musically speaking, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about an insurance policy because you have to be able to prove that you did what you said you did. And if you can't prove it, then you don't matter. And I know that's harsh, but that is the reality.
That's right. It is. So take the steps and do the right thing for yourself and for your music. And I think you'll be very, very happy with the fact that at least in that particular respect, you've laid down the foundation for protecting your rights in your creative work.
And that is going to be a show. It's a wonderful show. It's informative. People need to know it. So I am Alton Riddick on behalf of Tom Farley. Thank you for listening. This has been SEVACAST. Be kind for free, y'all. Check out Radio SEVA by going to the SEVA Sound homepage and clicking Radio SEVA, or to live365.com and search Radio SEVA. If you have any questions, comments, or topic ideas for SEVACAST or for Tom and Alton, go to sevasound.com and click on the Contact tab.